Everyone is talking about Kylian Mbappe's 85 goals in his first 100 matches. On paper, it looks like a dream. It looks like the Galactico era is back in full, unstoppable force. But if you watch what happened exactly 12 minutes before the Espanyol game, you will realize Real Madrid has a massive, multi-million-dollar problem. I have watched this club for years now, and the atmosphere in the stadium right now. Man, it is strange. You look at the statistics, you look at the scoreboard, and you think everything is perfectly fine. But then you hear it. The whispers in the Santiago Bernabéu. The low rumbling whistles echoing from the stands when a pass goes astray, or when a defensive sprint is ignored. 85 goals in 100 games. Most strikers would get a bronze statue outside the stadium for that kind of return. At any other club in the world, that level of production guarantees absolute, unquestioned immunity. But Real Madrid is not any other club. The Bernabéu is a completely different beast. They have seen Cristiano Ronaldo. They have seen Zinedine Zidane. They do not just demand goals. They demand your absolute submission to the institution. And right now, they feel a disconnect. Every channel on YouTube is talking about his tactical fit. They are pulling up heat maps to show how his positioning clashes with Vinicius Jr. on the left wing. They are analyzing his missed chances, his expected goals drop-off, and Carlo Ancelotti's shifting formations. They are trying to find a footballing answer to a problem that cannot be solved on a tactical whiteboard. Nobody is talking about the real issue. The real story has nothing to do with football. The real story is what happened when his body finally broke down. The real story is what happened when he got injured. Let me paint a picture for you. The match is against Espanyol. The tension is high. The players are in the dressing room at the Bernabéu, taping their ankles, tying their boots, and listening to Ancelotti's final, demanding instructions. They are preparing to go to war in front of 80,000 expectant fans. And where is the crown jewel of the Florentino Perez empire? Where is the man supposed to lead them into the next decade? He is stepping off a plane. Kylian Mbappé arrived in Spain exactly 12 minutes before the referee blew the whistle. 12 minutes. Now, the generous reading of this situation is that he simply had a tight travel schedule, a minor logistical hiccup while dealing with his muscle recovery abroad, just a superstar managing a busy diary. The less generous reading is that he considers himself a guest star in Madrid's movie. In the hyper-regimented, intensely political environment of the Real Madrid dressing room, punctuality and presence are not just about time management. They are the ultimate currency of respect. When you are injured at this club, there is an unwritten rule. You are expected to be the loudest voice in the stands. You are expected to suffer with the team, to be embedded in the collective anxiety of the matchday squad. You are expected to show that even when your legs cannot run, your heart is still bleeding white. To arrive 12 minutes before kickoff, casually strolling into the stadium as the gladiators are already walking out of the tunnel. That is not a delay. That is a message. It is a subtle, unspoken declaration of independence. It says, I am here, but I am not entirely one of you. And in a dressing room governed by the heavy ghosts of the past and the massive egos of the present, that kind of isolation is deeply dangerous. It breeds quiet resentment. It fractures the fragile illusion of unity. The fans might not know the exact timeline of his flights, but they can smell the detachment. They can sense when a player is operating less like a teammate and more like an independent franchise. Mbappé Incorporated temporarily leasing his world-class talents to the famous white shirt. And this 12-minute arrival was just the beginning. The real fracture happened a few days earlier, when he made a medical decision that shook the walls of the Valdebebas training ground. Let us talk about Valdebebas. For those who do not know, Ciudad Real Madrid in Valdebebas is not just a training ground. It is a fortress. It is a state-of-the-art, hyper-secured complex designed to provide everything an elite athlete could ever need. When you sign for Real Madrid, Valdebebas becomes your home, your sanctuary. And when things go wrong, your hospital. The medical staff there is considered some of the finest in the world, trusted by generations of Champions League winners. The unwritten rule of the club is incredibly simple. If you get injured defending the white shirt, you recover inside the walls of the club. You stay close to the squad. You work with the physios who report directly to Carlo Ancelotti and Florentino Perez. You suffer with your teammates. But when Kylian Mbappé suffered a knee issue and a muscle sprain that ruled him out of critical fixtures, He did not stay in Madrid. He packed his bags and flew to Paris. According to multiple reports in France, particularly from RMC Sport, there were whispers of a misdiagnosis by the Real Madrid medical team. Whether that is true or just a convenient leak from his camp is entirely beside the point. What matters is the action he took next. Mbappé chose to step away from Valdebebas to recover with his own personal team. He retreated to the familiar embrace of Paris to work with Dr. Bertrand Sonnery-Cottet, his personal physical trainer Sebastien Develas, and his trusted inner circle. Now, the generous reading of this situation is that a world-class athlete is simply seeking out the medical professionals he has trusted his entire career. A player of his caliber needs to protect his multi-million-dollar body at all costs. But remember the rule of this channel. We are not looking at the surface. That is not a medical decision. That is a political statement. By publicly bypassing Real Madrid's medical department and retreating to Paris, Mbappé is broadcasting a massive, glaring lack of trust in the institution. He is telling the world, and more importantly, he is telling the Real Madrid dressing room, that when things get tough, he does not rely on the club. He relies on his own empire. This is the exact clash of cultures we have been warning about. This is the collision between the institution and the franchise. Real Madrid operates under the strict, historical belief that no individual is bigger than the badge. But Kylian Mbappé did not arrive in Madrid as just a football player. He arrived as a multinational corporation. He has his own image rights, his own PR machine, and, as we now see, his own medical department. When he chooses Paris over Valdebebas, he is actively rejecting the integration process. He is maintaining his isolation. Think about how that looks to players like Jude Bellingham, Federico Valverde, or Dani Carvajal, men who spend hours agonizing on the treatment tables at the training ground, just to be ready for the next match. They see the new superstar leaving the trenches to get private treatment in his hometown. You earn respect in football not just by scoring goals, but by bleeding together. When you remove yourself from that collective suffering, you are no longer a teammate. You are a contractor. And this terrifying realization that Real Madrid might have bought a player who refuses to become a true Madridista was exposed even further just a few days later. Because Paris was not his only destination. Because Paris was just the medical headquarters of Mbappé Incorporated, the real twist in this story happened a few days later, miles away from both the French capital and the Spanish sun, in the freezing air of Sweden. During the international break in October, the official narrative was that Kylian Mbappé was unfit to play for the French national team. He needed rest. He needed recovery to protect his fragile knee and muscle sprain. The logical assumption, the absolute standard expectation for a Real Madrid player, is that a resting superstar is at home, undergoing intense physiotherapy, elevating his leg, and preparing for the brutal winter schedule. Instead, paparazzi cameras caught him in Stockholm. He was photographed leaving a restaurant and entering a nightclub with his entourage. And if that was not enough to ignite the Spanish press, a few weeks later, during his ongoing recovery, he was spotted vacationing in Cagliari, Italy. When the Stockholm photos leaked, the French and Spanish media completely erupted. To calm the political storm, the French national team manager, Didier Deschamps, stepped up to the microphone. He looked at the press, shrugged off the controversy, and delivered a quote that perfectly encapsulates the modern superstar era. He said, "If Mbappé has a day off, he has the right to do what he wants. An employee on his designated day off has the right to travel, the right to dine out, and the right to exist outside the relentless confines of his workplace." The generous reading of this situation is that an elite athlete, functioning under immense, crushing psychological pressure, is simply seeking a mental reset. He is taking a legally mandated break to clear his head before returning to the high-stakes, suffocating environment of the Santiago Bernabéu. But this is Real Madrid. And at Real Madrid, legality has absolutely nothing to do with culture. That is not a day off. That is a public relations disaster inside the dressing room. You have to understand the psychology of a struggling squad. While Mbappé was jet-setting across Europe shopping for high-end jewelry in Paris, clubbing in Stockholm, relaxing on an island in Cagliari, his teammates were back in Spain. They were grinding through exhausting tactical sessions, dealing with Ancelotti's shifting demands, and facing the immense, unforgiving pressure of the Madrid press. When a team is bleeding, the absolute minimum requirement for a superstar is the illusion of shared sacrifice. When you wear the badge, your days off are never entirely your own. If you are injured, the optics of your recovery matter just as much as the physical healing itself. You cannot demand the tactical privileges of a Galactico on the pitch, while aggressively exercising the freedoms of a wealthy tourist off-it. This is the fatal paradox of his freedom. By asserting his right to do whatever he wants, he is actively accelerating his own isolation. The dressing room notices everything. The seasoned veterans notice when a new signing treats the club's medical protocols as optional suggestions. The young players notice when the highest-paid player in the squad is living a completely detached lifestyle, while they are held to a merciless standard of dedication. He is not just recovering from a knee sprain. He is aggressively testing the boundaries of the institution. He is pushing the limits to see exactly how much of his independent franchise he can force inside the sacred walls of Madrid before the system violently pushes back. The dressing room is an incredibly fragile ecosystem. It is built on a very delicate balance of ego, hierarchy, and perceived fairness. You can have superstars who earn 10 times more than the backup right back, but the moment the rules of daily discipline are applied differently, the ecosystem begins to collapse. And according to multiple reports leaking out of the Spanish capital right now, that is exactly what is happening inside Valdebebas. Sources close to the squad are hinting at a growing sense of unfairness regarding how Mbappe's situation has been handled. The veterans of the squad, the players who have won multiple Champions League titles by adhering to the strict, militaristic culture of the club, are watching a new arrival bend the rules of the institution to fit his personal schedule. They see the trips. They see the private medical staff. They see the 12-minute arrival before kickoff. There is a completely valid version of this story, where you look at this purely through a modern lens. You could argue that football has evolved, that player power is at an all-time high, and that managing a talent like Kylian Mbappé requires a completely different set of rules. You could say that as long as he scores 85 goals in 100 games, the behind-the-scenes privileges simply do not matter. But that argument ignores the towering, inescapable shadow that looms over this entire situation. It ignores the man sitting at the very top of the hierarchy. It ignores Florentino Perez. To understand the sheer gravity of what is happening right now, we have to rewind to the summer of 2022, when Mbappé infamously rejected Real Madrid at the last possible second, choosing to stay in Paris after being pressured by the president of France and the sheer financial weight of Qatar. Florentino Perez gave a highly unusual interview. The president of Real Madrid, a man who rarely speaks unless he is dictating history, looked into the cameras and delivered a line that is now echoing violently through the corridors of the Bernabéu. He said, "This Mbappé is not my Mbappé," and that he had lost the pure, singular desire to play for Real Madrid. Perez eventually forgave him. 2 years later, he brought him to the Santiago Bernabéu, believing that the environment would fix the player, that the institution would absorb the franchise. But look at the reality of the last few months. Look at the isolated medical recovery in Paris. Look at the nightclub in Stockholm. Look at the detached, late arrivals on match days. Those words from 2022 were supposed to be a closed chapter. Today, they sound like a terrifying prophecy. Florentino Perez bought the ultimate superstar. But as he watches this drama unfold, as he listens to the faint whistles from his own crowd, and the silent frustration from his own dressing room, he must be asking himself a chilling question. Did he actually buy the Real Madrid version of Kylian Mbappé? Or did he just pay hundreds of millions of euros to bring Mbappé Incorporated to Spain? The answer to that terrifying question is about to be tested in front of the entire world. Later this week, Kylian Mbappé will undergo his final medical evaluations to determine his availability for the biggest fixture on the planet, El Clasico. But if you have been paying attention to the underlying currents we have discussed today, you already know that the physical test on his knee is the absolute least of his worries. The real test is the psychological one waiting for him at the Santiago Bernabéu. After Barcelona, Real Madrid has a crucial run of home games, welcoming teams like Oviedo and Bilbao. When Mbappé steps out onto that pristine grass, 80,000 people will be dissecting his every single micro-expression. They will not just be waiting for a blistering sprint or a top corner finish. They have seen plenty of those. They will be waiting to see if he is willing to suffer. They will be looking to see if he tracks back when the lungs are burning, if he defends his teammates in a brawl, if he has finally abandoned the detached franchise mentality and fully submitted to the institution. A muscle sprain can heal in 3 weeks. But a fractured trust with the Madridistas? That is an injury that can end a legacy before it even truly begins. Now, tell me in the comments what you actually think. Is Kylian Mbappé simply exercising his rightful privileges as a modern, multi-million-dollar superstar protecting his own body and mental space? Or is unchecked player power finally destroying the sacred, unspoken culture of the Real Madrid dressing room? There is no easy answer, but whatever side of the fence you sit on, mark your calendars. Come back to this video the exact moment the final whistle blows in El Clasico, because his body language on that pitch, and the way the away end reacts to him, is going to reveal exactly who is winning this silent war. If this kind of analysis, looking past the expected goals and diving deep into the brutal politics of the dressing room, is what you come here for, hit subscribe. We will see you in the next one.